Alright, so welcome back. We've got more stuff to take care of today. I've got a couple things that came in so we can work on. Unfortunately, the plan for this whole video would have involved the next shipment that's showing up a little bit later. So we'll just break this apart and get what we can done when we can. So we just need to steadily keep moving so that way we don't fall behind too far. We're probably already approaching being behind a couple of weeks from what I had envisioned, but all in all, we are making progress. So, today we are going to start tackling some of the oiling system and how we're going to do that in something that this LS doesn't belong in. Alright, so what we're doing here is we had to get well, there's probably enough room that we could have done a standard spin-on oil filter, but I also wanted to make sure we had an oil cooler for what we're doing, race-related stuff. So that's why we got that oil pan the way we did with the AN fittings. And so that leads to this little part that I picked up. Kind of a nice little thing. It's a Greddy. So it has the in from the oil pump, passes it through the filter, and then depending on how warm it is, it'll kick it all out through the out and in from the oil cooler or just out back to the engine. And it does that through a thermostat located here. It's spring loaded in there. So as it gets heated up, it'll actually should slide this way. So it'll block this passage, forcing everything to go out here and back through. And then this side is a filtered oil side that's currently plugged. I'm probably just going to drill and tap this plug for an 1/8 inch line. So I can put 1/8 inch NPT to 1/4 inch hose, and then I can run that as the feed for the turbo. But that we'll have to wait for the other shipment to take care of. We're just going to focus on how to get this thing mounted up in an accessible place that doesn't cause problems. And if you're wondering, this does flow a small amount through the oil cooler at all times. That way, once the thermostat opens, it doesn't shock the system with really cold oil. It'll all be about that same temperature. So I think that's set for 167 degrees. So that should be good enough. And for oil filter, they have their own company ones, which are like maybe this tall, thumb up. So I went searching for an OEM thing that fits, and what I found was a oil filter for a turbo PT Cruiser, or think like the 3.7 liter Dakotas and that type of stuff. It's a much taller oil filter, and that's kind of what I wanted for this setup. We just got the super cheapo to put on here for the first couple run through, and we'll be going from there. Alright, so of course we need to figure out where we can mount this thing. Now the issue with mounting it somewhere like here, which it would technically fit here, we can run everything through relatively properly we could get everything rigged up and we'd be good. But we have to take into account that the tube from the intercooler to the throttle body is going to have to pass through this area right behind the headlight. So while this does fit, we can't really do that. And it's kind of the same on the other side of the car. So we can't really put it over there. Putting it on by the turbo just doesn't sound like a good idea. All the extra heat and stuff there, and it's on the complete opposite side of the car. So, as weird as it might seem, I figured we could mount it right here, right next to the brake booster. So what this would pretty much allow us to do, we'll be able to reach in there, access the oil filter, take it off, put it back on. The only downside with that is just the proximity to exhaust header, but we'll just have to make sure that when we change the oil, we do it like a normal human. So the concept is going to be attach a bracket to right under this lip here, if you can see that. So right on the cowl lip here, attach a bracket. They'll come over and attach up here on this mount point on the filter bracket thing. And then we'll probably have to run something from down below, a hard point or something, to kind of take up that load. So I've kind of got some pieces of steel that I can cut and hopefully get drilled properly, and then we'll see how that goes from there. All right, there we are. It's a pretty simple bracket. Goes down. There's a hard point down here. Maybe you can see it, maybe you can't. But it's one of these stud pieces for a piece of plastic to attach. So hopefully that holds, being that close to exhaust. But that is our bracket. Alright, and I made a couple bolts out of remaining bolt parts. And we can just fasten her right on up in here. There we go. That's held on pretty tight. It allows us to spin off the oil filter. So then we can pull that out. Zip on a new one. Be a touch more difficult with the hoses coming off for going up to the front oil cooler, but all in all, that's pretty good. Then there's enough room behind it that we can take the hose off of this port here and run it all along this straight over to the turbo. So that will come out pretty nice. Alright, so the last thing that I did for the day is put in some spark plugs. So luckily I was able to reach all the spark plugs from where they need to. I was able to get a wrench on them. I can access all of these on this side from underneath, except that very last one, which I can fit a wrench over here. So it works even better on the other side, but hopefully we'll have some wires. I just ordered up a set of stock ones just to see if it's enough to, because over here I'm gonna have to come out and loop around the exhaust, because it doesn't look like it'll fit up in between. So I'll probably run it over, probably attach it to this shock tower to keep them over here, and then let them loop in. That will at least be the plan on that. Of course, I got these gapped at 25 thousandths, so that should be all we really need for what we're doing here. It's a more, I don't know, safe plug. So we might be leaving a little bit on the table for power, but we're not going max effort on this thing. Because if you're running a track day or something like that, you're not going to need the massive power that you would for drag racing. So that's at least what we're going with here. We got this all mounted up. That is in there pretty hard. Then we can get our fitting and hoses. They'll go straight down behind there, and then right underneath is where the part on the oil pan is at. I'm thinking we're boogieing right along. So yeah, next episode we'll probably put the oil cooler on. We'll probably have to modify my modification that I did for the intercooler to stiffen that. We'll have to probably chop off those little things and refigure something. But we'll do that when we get the cooler in. Then yeah, once we get the oil cooler in, then we do some radiator hoses, and then plumb in the turbo for oil. And then all that we got left to do is, fuel and wiring. All right, we'll be on track pretty quick. Then we'll have to continue with the brakes, but maybe by then I can get a different set of wheels. Then I can finish the big brake upgrade. And we can just start bolting this thing together, and yeah. Well, we're not too far off track. I was hoping by sometime November we'd be able to fire it up, but the way it's panning out now, since we don't even have an ECU yet, I mean, if I had an ECU, that probably wouldn't be a problem. We probably would have enough time, but fitting that ECU purchase into the cash flow. So maybe we fire it first of the year? I don't know, that sounds like a decent attempt for it. So fire it up the first of the year and see how we roll. All right, so starting to feel the light at the end of the tunnel here. So that's kind of good, because you know, it's probably not gonna work 100% the way I expect it, just to fire up and go and no problems whatsoever. But you can always keep your fingers crossed and hopes that's the way it goes. But a couple days I'll get the rest of the parts and we can get them thrown in there. Because you know, not every place is like Amazon where you get stuff next day or 2 day. Sometimes they actually have to ship it and it takes 5 days. Go figure. But anyways, thanks again for joining me. Make sure to keep coming back and seeing what we end up with this thing, and hopefully we'll get somewhere. Alright, thanks again for stopping by. Later.